wrong with Juicy Juice.
Hey, everybody. Good evening.
Good evening.
How's it going?
Doing all right.
I was just running around trying to make this stream start on time, and it's right down to the wire. And I was just saying I had to get something to drink before, and the only thing that I could find was a Juicy Juice box. So tonight we are joined. We have the pleasure to be joined by Norm, the gaming historian. So thanks for joining us for this.
Hi. Yeah, thanks for having me, guys. Always been a fan of your work, so I was honored that you asked me to be on your live stream.
Yeah, I mean we've been talking about this for a while. It's as your channel has like really exploded in the last like year and a half, 2 years. You know, you've been a very busy person. A lot of traveling.
Yeah,
and
you
stuff.
could say that. You could say that. It's funny, when I first started, I was like, yeah, I'm gonna do this. It's gonna be great. But now it's like, it's still great, but it's way more work than just like make a video and release it. There's like all this other stuff that goes with it that I wasn't quite prepared for.
I think we're in similar situations in that our shows involve a lot of research. Oftentimes ours is more like technical research, but there's so much more that goes into making it than just shooting and editing.
Yeah. Exactly.
And two, I think we're also in similar situations because, I know we have both tried to sort of set release schedules and stuff, and then we're just kind of in a when it's done sort of.
Yep. Yeah. It sounds like a great idea. A release schedule, that makes perfect sense, and then it just never.
I'd love to do it if I could, but it just seems like our shows just keep getting longer and longer. I was hoping I was making a sub 20-minute episode right now, and it's looking like it's probably going to be more like 30. So.
Yeah.
Yep.
Somehow.
That always happens. The best example I have is when I made the episode on the Power Glove. It was a Patreon voted topic, and I was like, well, there's not much to the Power Glove.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And then it's a 30-minute episode about the Power Glove.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, I'm doing an episode about SCART switchers and component switchers right now, and it's like, okay, well, I just have to look at each one, talk about basic features and whether it loses any quality. That's not going to take that long, and then somehow it takes probably 30 minutes.
See, well, and you guys are comparing devices all the time, so that's just like a ton of footage to just record, and you got to compare, and you need all the technical specifications.
Yeah.
Like I don't envy.
Yeah, well, and every time I think, okay, this is like the last like complicated thing that I could possibly be looking at for a while, and that's how I'm feeling right now. I mean, I'm looking at a bunch of SCART switchers. I mean, that means I have to like basically pull all my wires out of my setup and test all of these different ones, and I'm thinking, what could possibly make a bigger mess than this? And one day I am sure I will be surprised.
Yeah. Speaking of the Power Glove video or episode, it's such a huge influence on us when it comes to like I love your title sequence in that episode.
Like that title sequence was like a big inspiration for like how we approached the limited run
intro, kind of giving its own unique intro to it.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I wanted to try something different because I had all of this B-roll footage of the Power Glove that I couldn't fit into the episode anywhere.
They're saying we're quiet, by the way.
Oh, hang on. All right.
Just us on Skype.
Seeing Norm, I can't hear you that well. But
should be better now.
I had a bunch of B-roll footage. I didn't know what to do with it. One of the guys that worked on the Power Glove, he sent me a bunch of raw B-roll footage of the Power Glove that he had, and so I just put it in the intro. It made the most sense anyway.
Yeah. I mean, but it was cool because it gave that like you felt like, oh wow, this is different. Like
this is something special. You're gonna settle in and watch it.
Another episode of The Gaming Historian. This is
that's
something.
Right.
Yeah.
This is like, this is like a film.
I wish.
And it was. I mean, that was an incredible episode.
Thank you guys. I appreciate it. I'm always looking to get better. I ask you guys for advice all the time on Twitter for like film and capturing. You guys are the experts at capturing game footage.
We try to act like we are, but we pretend to be.
It's funny because I like right before this stream, I was watching the your ESRB video, and I was like, oh, I forgot Try was in this.
That is a controversial guest appearance by Try.
I did see a lot of comments when that video first released, and they're like, why is this, why is this voice for the center so goofy? Look the guy up. I'm not saying I did like a great imitation of his voice or anything, but he has a goofy as heck voice.
Yeah, it's funny because I asked you to like try to imitate his voice. He has a very deep Southern drawl,
which is it's like that Gone with the Wind style accent that you don't actually hear real people have, but it's like just this slightly outdated style of Southern accent that you just really almost never hear in real life.
Yeah, and I can see how it was jarring for people because it kind of like just appears this like crazy Southern accent. So I get it, but I have no regrets of asking you to do that.
How do you generally decide who you're gonna pick? Do you just like kind of pick who you think like fits the person, or is it?
It's a combination of whose voice matches the actual person closest, and also people that I'm friends with and who I know.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why I know Try has a Southern accent, and he's out of North Carolina. So I was like, okay, I bet Try could do this voice. But yeah, that's kind of what I go for. I've used people, so like I've used Gerard a few times just because he has a good speaking voice, and he kind of has some acting experience. So voiceover work is a lot. There's a lot of acting involved in it that I didn't realize.
Oh yeah.
You can't just like say a line and be like, okay, I'm done.
Yeah.
I mean, that's kind of my problem. I cannot claim myself to be an actor.
But you're good. Either. You're good at like, when you're given a character to play, you know how to do it. I mean, I'm not so good at that. It's I want to do it, but it never comes out the way that I feel like I always come off acting like me.
You're typecast.
Yeah, pretty much as myself.
Always be Corey.
Yeah, but you did pretty good with in my mailbox.
Yeah, but that was not intentional.
Yeah, but now I'm just curious why that popped out of your mouth.
Well, it's because that was the line, and then it came out, and suddenly maybe it's just because I've lived in Kentucky for too long. Suddenly, it's just. I mean, I'm talking normal the whole time, and then it's something about the words in my mailbox, and it's like it just came on as in my mailbox, and I don't know like why that happened. I don't know. That Norm, if you didn't see it, that was kind of like a little thing at the end of the VHS episode that we did recently. It was kind of a blooper, but that whole thing, I say, I was talking about the Donkey Kong Country VHS tape that Nintendo sent out, and I said, I came home from school after getting Jurassic Park because I got that VHS the same day that Jurassic Park came out on video, and I said in my mailbox was this, and it came out as like in my mailbox, which. And I swear there's a clip of me trying to like get past saying that goes on for 4 minutes. Trying to say it without the accent and not laugh after I can't get past it.
It happens. Yeah. I get it. I'm trying to think of a word that I was struggling with recently. Depth. DEPTH.
Oh, that's a tough one.
I kept saying like what was I saying? Deaf. Deaf. I like took me 5 minutes to actually say the word.
I shot my segment for the next episode yesterday, and I couldn't say ultimately.
That's not bad.
Ultimately,
It's I mean like,
Ultimately.
you know that's kind of tough. But try saying bandridge switchers out loud.
bandridge switchers,
Bandridge switchers.
bandridge switchers,
Multiple times in like twice in 2 sentences.
Well, I had to say Super G and G SCART a lot, and I did get to this one point where I couldn't say Super G anymore. Super G, Super G,
Yep.
Super G.
But bandridge switchers. It's really tough.
Switchers.
It's tough. It is tough. It's all this stuff behind the scenes that people don't know about.
That's right. The struggle.
Yeah. Do you have any like good outtakes? Do you feel like? Have you just like getting like frustrated?
I really don't. People ask for like bloopers, but I really don't have any because I kind of work alone, and so if I mess up, I'm just like, damn it, and then I start again. No, I don't. There's not any funny banter, unfortunately.
Yeah.
There's usually not for me either. I think Corey has more. Corey amuses himself more when he's recording.
Well,
but every once in a while, I get something that I send off to you.
Yeah. I mean, we showed some stuff at MagFest this year, and we kind of put it on our Patreon and on on Facebook. But we've kind of gathered up a whole bunch since then.
Mm-hmm.
And we'll probably have enough for another one pretty soon. The last one we kind of held on to for a long time. So, anyways, tonight we're gonna be playing some Bleem, which
Bleem.
Yeah, I mean, you just did a big
this.
episode.
I know a little bit about Bleem.
Yeah. So Norm's most recent not April Fool's episode. Is about.
I had a lot. By the way, I had a lot of fun yesterday. Like, that's the most fun I've ever had on Twitter.
Like just kind of like to be a character, essentially.
It was on. It remind me what the other thing was called. It was on Bleem and what was the other thing?
Virtual Game Station.
See, right. And I was shocked when I watched that episode. Like, I was aware of Bleem for Dreamcast, and I was aware that there was a court thing that basically gave us our understanding of how emulators stand in law nowadays, which is emulation in and of itself is fine. It's the sharing of ROMs and ripped games that is not legal.
Yeah.
But I was just shocked how with that episode I knew almost none of it. Like, I didn't know about that other emulator for Mac. I didn't know that Bleem was also for PCs. I did not know that. I just knew none of that, which I felt like I should have had some more of an inkling than I did, but that was all news to me.
Well, here's the funny thing. So this was a Patreon voted topic. People wanted to know about the Bleem case. And when you start researching the Bleem case, you learn about the virtual game station. And because they're connected, basically, in a way. Their stories are very similar. And so when I'm learning about Bleem, I learn about the virtual game station, which is arguably a more important emulator than Bleem was. But Bleem marketed themselves way better than the virtual game station, primarily because virtual game station was at first a Macintosh only product, and Mac in the late 90s wasn't
not
10% of the computer market. So it's funny how many people were blown away by the clip of Steve Jobs that virtual game station.
Like, that was just such a wild thing, because I couldn't imagine seeing something like that, at say E3 these days, where a executive from another company is talking about, hey, you can play someone else's games on our system. Yeah. That really did blow my mind. That was just such a surreal thing to see. Right. Just like, hey, here's PlayStation. We didn't ask them about this, but you're going to be able to play this. It's just so wild.
It blew my mind. So I was like, I got to fit this clip in here somewhere. But yeah, it was a cool episode to research. I was able to talk to Aaron Giles, who
Oh,
He's behind the virtual game station.
wow! And he works at Microsoft now.
He does work at Microsoft now.
That's pretty impressive that you were, because I've always felt like if you wanted to talk to someone who presently works at a company like Microsoft, like you may as well not even try. Like, how hard was that?
He has a blog.
Okay.
So I reached out to him because I saw his name come up in my research, and I was just like, hey, I know you're involved with this. I'd love to talk to you about it. So we had a Skype call for about an hour and a half, and he kind of told me his cool stories. My favorite one was when they did the pitch meeting to Sony, and they basically lied and said, oh yeah, our virtual game station plays every PlayStation game. And so the guy went over to the shelf to pick out a random game, and luckily for them, they picked out Ridge Racer, which did work. But if they had picked, like, I'm thinking of the percentage wise, because there's over 100 games out by that point. Like, if they picked out In the Hunt,
Right.
he'd have been
I specifically saw in the hunt, like in your clip, you pulling out Ridge Racer. I was like, is it going to be In the Hunt?
Yes.
That's awesome, and it's awesome that you have In the Hunt because it's a great game.
Well, I borrowed a lot of those games from a friend of mine because
those long boxes.
When I do the B-roll, I want it to be accurate to the time period. So I was like, okay, games that were released before 1999. So my friend was like, just take every long box game I have.
Then you're safe if you do that. Yeah.
Yeah. So I took all those. Like, I don't own In the Hunt or Ridge Racer, believe it or not.
But there was no red tape and talking to him or anything. You didn't go through Microsoft. He just was like, yeah, I'll talk to you.
Yeah. I mean, we didn't talk about anything going on at Microsoft. It was strictly about his old job. So, yeah, he was happy to talk to me. He was a really nice guy. Most people that I asked to talk to, they're more than happy to talk. Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is good for me.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, sometimes you just gotta try, and especially when it's talking about stuff that's like, several years in the past.
Too, I'd say.
What's that?
Mm-hmm.
I'd say we've generally had a similar experience, when we've, tried to talk to people. It's like not necessarily as hard to get to talk to people as you might think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm going to go ahead and start the game just so everyone knows.
Yeah. Let's see. I've never seen Bleem in action before.
Just to confirm, Bleem does work in 480p, but I'm going to be playing in 480i just because I think it's more interesting that these games are 240p and they're being interlaced, I guess.
Yes.
So if you play it in 480p though, will it be natively 480p or is it 240p upscaled to 480p?
I think it renders it in 480p.
Yeah, right. I believe Bleem like natively does 480p.
Yeah, and I'm starting with Metal Gear Solid because out of the three games, this is the one I know the best. And I'm kind of curious how this is going to work without two shoulder buttons, or it's lacking two shoulder buttons.
Yeah. Yeah, how will that work? and a select button.
Oh, they assign it to the D-pad.
They mapped it. They all map it. It's there was enough buttons on the Dreamcast to map it. But yeah, it's a little awkward. And this is partially why Bleem wanted to make a controller converter. But that never came out.
Yeah, it's always so wild to me, like how after. I mean, the Dreamcast has fewer buttons than the Saturn.
But I mean, when you consider it, like the D-pad,
by one, yeah,
like assigning the D-pad as buttons.
Yeah, but still, it's kind of crazy to think. I mean, they were trying to compete with Sony, and you only have two shoulder buttons instead of four. You get rid of the select button.
To be fair, the Dreamcast controller is pretty awful, anyways.
It's not a great controller, no. I mean, but it just seems like they were not. I mean, maybe they were thinking more like we're going to have more like quick, easy to get into arcadey type stuff. But I still think they should have had a more ambitious controller. I say that as a person who generally believes that consoles with simpler controllers often have better control schemes because I feel like the developers get more creative when they have to work within like the restrictions of, okay, how can I get all these actions? And then you play a game on a PlayStation controller and it's just like, oh, let's come up with something to put on every single button.
Yeah. When I played Metal Gear Solid on the Bleemcast when I was making the episode, first of all, it's a very surreal experience putting a PlayStation game in your Dreamcast.
Yeah.
But I was amazed by the quality.
Yeah, I mean, it looks pretty great.
It looks good, and it looks better than, I mean, it's better than playing it on your PS2. They did a great job. I mean, they only released 3 games that were compatible for Bleemcast, so I'm sure they made sure it worked really well.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just it's an interesting experience. It's one of those things that's like, I feel like it should be on a bucket list. Like, try Bleemcast. It's on the gamer bucket list.
Yeah, I mean, it's. I always liked the idea of PlayStation emulation on PC because I liked the idea that I could use my own disc. But the problem is you can't do it 100% legit because no one, to my knowledge, I mean, I guess these guys did, but I have not really heard anyone say that there's like a BIOS or BIOS or however you want to say it for PlayStation, a replacement for the official one that is deemed worth using in place of the official one. I don't know. For PC at least, I don't know.
So Virtual Game Station literally wrote their own BIOS.
Right.
And Bleem, I'm not entirely sure what Bleem did. I'm assuming they did something very similar though.
Right.
I'm assuming they just rewrote it or made their own or what have you. But a lot of the ones that you download from the internet, yeah, they give instructions like, you need a copy of your PlayStation BIOS.
Right.
Hint, hint, wink, wink.
Yeah.
I've heard you can download it. You know, that's where it gets illegal. But that's how Bleem and Virtual Game Station got around it. They just didn't use the PlayStation BIOS. But according to Aaron Giles, the PlayStation BIOS is very primitive. It's super primitive.
Really? So is it actually not that hard to make just a full replacement? So then why is that how modern PC emulators are? Like, why don't people just write their own?
Oh, I think they've gotten a lot more complex since the days of the PlayStation. So that might be one reason. But
but I'm talking about for PlayStation.
For PlayStation, that's a good question. One thing Aaron Giles did mention was that one of the reasons Virtual Game Station was somewhat successful was because a company made the emulator. It wasn't like hobby guy sitting at a computer. So
right.
A team of experts, like expert programmers, that made this. So writing a BIOS probably wasn't a big deal, especially considering, according to him, the PlayStation BIOS isn't super technical or complex. It literally just asks for a game and then boots into the game. So
that's so wild. I mean, that was the other wild thing about that episode in general was just thinking about all of these like just companies and they're being like, oh yeah, this would be fine. You just don't think of companies making something like that. It's just such a it really is like a wild time, like thinking about that era of emulation. I never really thought of early days emulation that much.
Yeah. If you look at this on the screen when you get to it, you can kind of see that the scaling is a little bit off. You'll see it on the words. It's just because we're so used to looking for this stuff that nobody will care about. But I mean, it's just
like the models and the textures are much smoother.
Oh yeah.
Right. The 2D elements maybe are a little jankier, but the 3D rendering is impressive.
Yeah.
man. All right.
How much does it cost to get a hold of a Bleem disc these days? An official one.
I went on eBay because I'm lazy, but you can if you want to search for them, they're in thrift stores everywhere, and they're usually $1. I mean, they're nothing. Here's the problem though. Bleem, if you want to get Bleem working on a modern computer, it is extremely difficult because it was programmed to work on Windows 98 architecture. So,
but what about Dreamcast Bleem discs?
Oh, Bleemcast? Actually, those are a little harder to find out in the wild. Anyway, you can go on eBay. I bought all 3 discs for I think $20, and they were all sealed. They were still brand new.
Okay, so pretty cheap.
Yeah, they're cheap.
I died at the beginning. I haven't died in this beginning.
Every time I play the beginning of the game, like I always second guess, like, am I doing something wrong? Does it really take that long for the elevator to come back? And so I like always end up screwing around and getting killed when, yeah, you really do just have to wait. It's actually kind of a weird opening area to the game, I think.
Yeah. I'm just gonna grab the ration. I forgot about the ration. That's
But the getting Bleem to work was like a headache. I had to do stuff that I usually don't do for episodes. So like I had to install a virtual machine application, and I had to have it boot to Windows 2000. And, I had to get some modder made a patch for Bleem so it will work on Windows XP. So I had to install that. It was like went down a complete rabbit hole to get both pieces of software working. And in my recording, Virtual Game Station worked much better than Bleem as far as compatibility. But Bleem was impressive in that it has all of the enhancements you can make to your game graphically.
Yeah.
Virtual Game Station did not have that at all. It was literally you can play the game and you can save your game and you can change what the buttons do on your USB controller. But
it had the low res PlayStation look.
Yeah, it didn't upscale or do anti-aliasing or anything like that. But Bleem has a ton of options. Like, there's a lot you can do.
That's interesting. Yeah, I mean, I
think with Bleemcast, they did like what is like probably the most whatever makes the game the best looking. So they made it 640 by 480, and they turned on anti-aliasing and like bilinear filtering, I think.
Now, if people made Bleemcast work with other games,
okay, that's
what I thought, but I just don't know a lot about it.
There was somebody leaked a beta version of Bleemcast that was compatible with over 100 games.
Wow.
The compatibility isn't the best. According to Randy Linden, who programmed Bleem, he said that beta is basically junk. You'd be lucky to get it working, but they were trying to do that. They just didn't. They ran out of money for the lawsuits, and it just didn't get the way they hoped.
I mean, you say that they had better marketing, but at the same time, I look at the fact that they're releasing single games.
Well, they weren't supposed
compatibilities, and it's just like that's.
Well, I remember when it was like they were going to release. It's going to work with so many games. It had so much hype, and then it was like, oh, we're just going to release the ones.
Big time. And it would have been amazing if they got it working. But the individual discs was pretty disappointing, and they retailed for like $5 to $8, and it's like.
I mean, I worked in retail when that was happening. I remember when it came out, because that was very close to the end of the Dreamcast lifespan, anyways.
Yeah, and like the PS2 PS2 came out the same year Bleemcast came out, so it's like,
yeah, it's like, why?
I'm done with PS1. I'm ready to move on to PS2 and Dynasty Warriors 2. Let's go.
It's so funny. I mean, I always think about, because I worked at Electronics Boutique during the Dreamcast years, and I remember, the Dreamcast was so good, but everyone was just like, I'm just gonna wait for the PS2. I'm gonna wait for the PS2.
I think that's the general attitude of most people, like when a new console is announced, because like the Nintendo Switch is out. Wii U, anyone gonna play the Wii U?
Yeah.
Again, or look forward to some upcoming Wii U releases?
Yeah.
But
I mean, me being the way I am, I have to keep my Wii U hooked up, and I mean, I want to revisit the games that are on it, but
Sure.
yeah. I mean, it's as far as upcoming stuff. Yeah, I mean, it's over. It's over.
And that's not even maybe not the best comparison, because the PS2 was like so hyped up.
Oh yeah, it was. And it
Huge.
released, and the launch was like not even. I mean, the games that came out, it was like SSX was good, and
Time Splitters was launch, right?
I don't think so.
Let me look up the PS2
What about
launch.
It was like
Tekken Tag,
SSX,
maybe?
Tekken Tag, Street Fighter EX 3, Fantavision,
Let's see.
Smuggler's
I've got the list
Run.
right here.
I think.
Eternal. Oh wait, sorry. You want to do the U.S. launch?
Yeah.
Dynasty Warriors 2, which I've mentioned. Armored Core 2.
Oh, okay.
Interesting. Summoner. I remember Summoner.
Mm-hmm.
Tekken Tag Tournament. Ridge Racer 5. Smuggler's Run. Silent Scope. SSX.
Wait,
Great Rumble Boxing Round 2.
Silent Scope was a launch game?
That's what it says.
Wow.
Huh.
Gun Griffin Blaze. Fantavision, Evergrace, Eternal Ring. It had a pretty decent launch. Unreal Tournament. Had a pretty decent launch lineup.
I'm starting to say something about one of the games that you mentioned, and it already slipped my mind which one it was.
Was it was it Eternal Ring?
No.
But oh geez.
The
problem is I hate the Dreamcast analog stick. That's like one of the things.
It's not the best.
Back in the day, I did like it, but now I'm not really sure what I saw on it. I liked the analog. I liked the feel of the analog stick more than the DualShock analog stick at the time. But yeah, I don't know what I was thinking. It's not wonderful. I find even the D-pad. I was playing Grandia 2 last year, and I found the D-pad even a little hard to use. Like, it felt like I was hitting like diagonals or wrong directions or stuff when I was in menus. And but it's crazy because as bad as the Dreamcast did, like, I didn't know like a lot of Sega people. But weirdly enough, a bunch of my friends got Dreamcasts. And so like I played a fair bit of Dreamcast during its, relatively short life. And so, I had more experience with the Dreamcast than any other Sega system, back at that time.
I think
I didn't want to get one myself yet, but
I think by the time I could save enough money to buy a Dreamcast, it was already dead.
Yeah, it's crazy though, thinking about how short it was, because
well, so many good games came out in such a short period of time for it.
A fairly expensive Dreamcast game that I played last year that I really liked was Bleed. And when I looked up when it was released, I think it was released like either the same month or the month after the Dreamcast was announced to be discontinued. And I'm sure that has something to do with why the game is pretty expensive, because
everyone had already moved on by then.
Yeah, it's so crazy though to think what a short time that was, because you think about the first year of it was what, like a year and a half, right? I think.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you think of the first year and a half of a modern console, and it's not nearly as prolific.
No, absolutely not.
I mean, especially not in terms of quality games. I mean, you think about the PS4. I mean, it's going to be, it was what, 2013? It's going to be 4 years old. Can you believe the PS4 is going to be 4 years old this year? That's ridiculous.
Is it really?
Yeah, it's wild, right?
No, hang on.
November, it was 2013. Wii U was 2012.
I'm gonna look this up.
PS4 and Xbox One were 2013.
Wait, what's gonna be? Wait,
the
what?
PS4 is gonna be 4 years old this year.
No way.
Yeah,
it was launched.
And the
November
Vita's even older than
2013.
that. I was just talking to somebody how it's crazy that the DS is as old as it is.
Yeah. But what I was gonna say about PS4 is, I mean, you think how many years it's been out. Now, you can probably count, I mean, don't get me wrong, PS4, great system, lots of great games on it, but you can probably count on one hand, like, the system seller exclusives for PS4. Like, you've got stuff like Bloodborne, Uncharted 4, I haven't got to play Horizon Zero Dawn yet, but I understand that's really good. But, I mean, there's just not that many. The PS4 doesn't really have its own identity. The Dreamcast, if nothing else, had, very much an identity all of its own.
Yeah.
And it did that in a year and a half. And everyone I knew that got into the Dreamcast loved it.
Yeah. It had a very cult following.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it had the best launch ever, too. So, at least in my opinion. Oh, camera.
Sonic Adventure.
Yeah. Soul Calibur.
They did. Soul Calibur. Was Power Stone?
Power Stone, yeah. I mean, look up the launch for that. It's huge.
Let's see. Let's take a look. Dreamcast launch titles. Power Stone, Mortal Kombat Gold, Soul Calibur, Blue Stinger.
Oh, that was a launch game?
Yeah. Let me see. Dreamcast. NFL 2K. Air Force Delta.
Yeah, it's a Konami game.
I mean, Ready to Rumble Boxing. That was a good game. I mean, just having Power Stone, Sonic Adventure, and Soul Calibur. Those three right there are huge. Oh, House of the Dead 2 as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a great launch lineup.
I mean, I always remember like being very confused when the N64 came out. That people were like, man, there's nothing to play on this but Mario. And I'm just thinking, like, you want more games? I don't understand why.
Yeah.
Like, the concept of needing to launch with more than one game just didn't make any sense to me for a long time. Like, it's kind of this. I mean, sure, Switch launched with more than one game, but it's kind of the same situation. It's like who wants to play anything more than Zelda right now? It was the same thing with the N64. Like, Mario 64 was just so mind-blowing that I just could not, like, why would I want to play another game right now? This is all my body can handle.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah,
and then I played.
I'm not even thinking about. I'm not even thinking about buying another Switch game right now.
Yeah, pretty much.
I did already get the Japanese physical copy of I Am Setsuna because it plays. It's the only physical copy that Japan got several physical copies of. But
you can change the language to English, right?
You can play it in English on an American Switch. So.
It's a huge selling point for me.
Yeah, I went ahead and got that because like the first shipment sold out, so I was kind of scared that it might become scarce. So I went ahead and got it from Amazon Japan, which is dangerously easy to order from.
I see.
I
did play the Splatoon 2 global test fire. Yeah. I don't know if that counts, but
I had some trouble connecting at the time. but I think there's been like a firmware update that should make connectivity issues better. I did play that though.
Yeah.
I played the Snipper Clips demo, which was fun.
I wonder how this.
I haven't played that. I hear that's more fun if you have someone to play with.
Yeah, it was. I mean, I kind of enjoy that sort of puzzle game. Like, I really like character-based puzzle games. So I enjoyed it, but yeah, I can see it's definitely made for playing with more than one person.
Yeah.
I wonder how this version, like playing Metal Gear Solid with Bleem, compares to the Windows version that came out. Because I always forget that they came out on Windows.
Yeah.
It's kind of weird to think back.
Yeah, I barely remember that.
I mean, obviously, that was, at the height of the 3DFX voodoo business. So, I mean, anti-aliasing was a big thing. So.
Yeah, I had the PC version of Final Fantasy VII, but my computer was so bad that it played FMVs. It played FMVs upside down.
What?
Yes,
Yeah.
It literally played FMVs upside down, and when I got once it got to like the actual gameplay, like it was so chuggy. I mean, it couldn't do it. That was before I had a PlayStation. I really, I borrowed a friend's PlayStation and played through the game, and I thought, I'll get my own copy on computer. And yeah, my first computer was a compact Presario, and it was no good.
I think that a lot of people's like mine was a Packard Bell.
It was my first Windows computer. It was garbage.
It was garbage. Well, whatever. I guess I played like a little Doom on mine, but mainly, or I played Fallout a little bit. The first. No,
really?
It wasn't Fallout. It was Wasteland.
Oh, okay.
I played a lot of PC games growing up.
Do you play a lot now?
I do actually. Well, I play one specifically, but I play Battlefield 1 a lot. I'm addicted to Battlefield 1.
Really?
Yeah, and part of it is because I'm a big history nerd, and the game it's based in World War One, and I just think that's so cool. So I'm really into those types of games, like
underrepresented time period.
Sure, and actually, they announced the new Call of Duty is going back to World War II, and most people groaned at that, but I was geeking out. I was like, yes, we're going back to World War II. But the title of the game is horrible. It's just called Call of Duty World War II.
Oh.
Okay.
So they're like stopping
whatever.
Like what was it like? Maybe like 10 or so years ago, where like World War II games were such a cliche.
Dime a dozen. A dozen.
Yeah.
Yeah. Even I was getting tired of them. But they're going back to it because I guess like Infinite Warfare and Call of Duty Ghost wasn't selling well. I don't know. I never played those because once they got out of the historical stuff, I lost interest. But I kind of geek out of that stuff. But growing up, I played Doom. I was way too young to be playing Doom.
That's for most people who did.
Yeah. Lego Island. I don't know if you remember Lego Island, the very first Lego video game.
I played Lego Racers, but not Lego.
Lego Racers was good. I played The Incredible Machine.
Oh yeah. My uncle
that was
had
fun. But then eventually I got my own computer, and you get into like Counter-Strike and Half-Life. And
yep.
all
I
those
played
classic,
I played Counter-Strike and
games.
Team Fortress Classic.
Mm-hmm.
Played a lot of that in college.
Yeah. And I almost got Final Fantasy 7 and 8 on PC. I think I got them on PlayStation, but I loved the big boxes they came in. It was you always saw it on the shelf, and you're just like, "Whoa, this looks so important."
Yeah, I didn't really like. We didn't have a computer in my house until like Windows computer until '97. So, I played like at my uncle's house, like, I messed around with like Wolfenstein and Lemmings and Incredible Machine and that kind of stuff. But I eventually got, I got Final Fantasy VII, and that didn't work. But I think it was the same computer, and it did run Mist and Ribbon, so I got really into those.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I never really had a computer that could play a game very well until until let me think. Like my college computer, like at the time, it was kind of like a different thing to build a computer that was spec'd for video editing, and a computer that had a good graphics card for playing games. Like there were kind of different kinds of cards.
Yeah.
And so like I was getting more of a video editing computer when I was going into college, and then but then when that computer wasn't all that good for that long, so my cousin helped me build a new computer. I was like, that was kind of when I learned how to build a computer.
Yeah.
And I kind of realized, like, I built this for like doing video editing and 3D animation, but it was actually probably going to be able to play games really well too. And that was like 2004, so it was not that long after Half-Life 2 came out. And I had absolutely zero intention of playing games on it when I got it. And then all of a sudden I have this, and I'm like, ooh, I wonder what games I can play on that.
Yeah. Becoming an adult is a great time in your life for PC gaming, because you're like, oh, I can afford all this stuff now. I'm going to build a really nice computer.
Yep.
And that's kind of what I did. When I got my first kind of big job out of college, I went all out and built a really good computer. And yeah, like you said, you just like, I wonder what games I can play on this.
Yeah,
And you just,
yeah. I mean, Half-Life 2, like at the time, that was kind of like, I guess, the benchmark. Like, it was the most famous, like, impressive PC game at the time.
Yeah.
And so I signed up for Steam, and I got that, and I couldn't believe what I was looking at. It was just, it was incredible, because, otherwise I was just playing GameCube and PS2 games. And it was pretty impressive. And so, but yeah, and then I got, I played Oblivion on the same computer, and Fable, and a few other games. But then I went through a lot of phases with PC games, up to as recently as maybe 4 or 5 years ago. I played like the Tomb Raider reboot and BioShock Infinite and stuff like that. I played the PC versions of those instead of the console versions. But then when PS4 came out, I kind of just switched over to pretty much only playing console versions, in large part because I've kind of got addicted to the whole physical copy thing. And
well, I'm one of those guys that when it comes to first-person shooters, you cannot beat the mouse and keyboard. Like when a game like Doom came out recently, I got it on PC because I was like, I just can't play Doom on a PS4. Like, there's nothing wrong with it, but just like it's tough for me with the controller to adjust.
Yeah, I don't have a problem with the mouse as a game input device, but I have problems with the keyboard. I just cannot accept that. I'm like, this is a tool. This is not a game input thing.
It just feels so natural, though.
Yeah, it really does. I think one of the reasons I don't do like playing like mouse and keyboard anymore is because I use a trackball for my mouse all the time. And I have no idea how that would
for editing.
Yeah,
for editing purposes.
Like there's a while there where I was kind of having like my wrist was getting sore. I wanted to stop it before it got pretty serious. So I switched over to trackballs, and that's all I use now.
Well, and for me, you know, I sit on my couch. I, you know, edit on my monitor. Like I've got this very, my setup is not really geared to sitting at a desk with a, you know, a proper setup for playing in that way.
Right.
When I played the first time I played Mass Effect 1 and 2 was on PC. And I actually went so far. I feel like no one else does this, but I feel like this is my secret genius PC input method. That was actually when I bought my trackball. Well, actually, that one died, so I bought a replacement that's exactly the same. But I thought, you know, I bet it would be okay to play Mass Effect with a trackball. And which, I mean, Grant, don't get me wrong, it's definitely not going to be as accurate as a true mouse, but I'm not much of a competitive shooter gamer, so I don't really care that much about super accurate anything, you know.
Yeah.
Just as long as it's good enough to just play the single player mode, it's fine. And then I got the PlayStation Move Navigator, which I didn't have a PlayStation Move at the time, and I just bought the Navigator, you know, the nunchuck equivalent. And I used the PS4 or PS3 PC drivers and mapped buttons to it, and you know, so I could use that instead of the keyboard.
Yeah.
So I played Mass Effect 1 and 2 with a PlayStation Move Navigator and a trackball because I am that. It's stupid, but I don't like keyboards as game input devices. Unless it's text, you know, I'll play, you know, I played Final Fantasy 11 and currently play Final Fantasy 14 with, you know, keyboard in my lap, and you know, just swap between controller and keyboard.
Those old adventure games, old text adventure games.
Now
You have to use a keyboard for that.
now that you know, that's different. Like, and I love, you know, I don't have extremely extensive experience with text adventure and stuff like that. You know, probably my most experience is, you know, King's Quest type stuff.
Yeah.
You know, my first exposure to that, well, no, it wasn't my first exposure. Well, I played on my uncle's computer, I played King's Quest 5, but that was not text entry based. My first exposure with like the old school King's Quest was actually Peasant's Quest, which, you know, the Homestar Runner version. And then they also had Thy Dungeon Man, which was like, they had, I think, 3 of those, which were pure text navigation. And I really do like, you know, I later did play through all of the King's Quest games, except I couldn't finish 7 because of a timing issue that you run into on modern PCs. But I like the idea of text entry for a game because I feel like it almost creates this greater illusion of I can do anything.
Yeah.
Because you can type, I mean, it won't recognize every word, but you feel like anything that pops into your head, you know, you could tell your character to do. And maybe they could do it. Whereas, you know, when you're just using, you know, a set control scheme or a controller, you know, each of those buttons has certain functions, and it doesn't necessarily feel like you could do anything. I know I've told this story a few times, but my favorite, like, King's Quest story is in King's Quest 1, when you there's this part where there's this goat in a fence, and I couldn't figure out what to do with the goat. I had no idea what to do next, and I happened to have a knife, and I just thought, I wonder what would happen. And I typed open goat. And has this. It says, Graham brandishes the knife and dives into the guy. It's like, oh my gosh, that and that just like blew my mind so much. Like, this game is amazing. I can do anything in this game.
That sounds like an Easter egg.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know if anyone open goat.
Open goat. It worked, yeah. And then Police Quest. I played Police Quest last year. That was pretty fun.
Can we just talk about how good this game is?
It's pretty great.
It's a classic.
Yeah, I mean, it's been a while since I've replayed it, but I'm just like kind of reminded, before like the series was huge, and playing this and not really knowing what was the story, where the story was going, is a pretty special time, I think.
Yeah, I mean,
this game came out the same day as Xenogears came out.
Really?
Yeah, I think I may have said that to you before. I think.
I mean, I remember at the time this was like the wildest video game story ever.
Yeah.
It's
like
pretty
it was
wild.
just like it was the craziest thing, and then of course, then some of the later games got even.
I mean, of course,
crazier.
you didn't play Snatcher, so you didn't. That was a pretty wild story.
Yeah,
too.
I didn't know, but it's so funny thinking back, like when Twin Snakes came out. Like I'd probably played through the original maybe 1.5 times, and I'd played Metal Gear Solid 2. And I remember at the time when I first played Twin Snakes, I'm like, wow, this is great. This is fantastic. It looks just like Metal Gear Solid 2. And, and I know people were, kind of ragging on, some of the more over the top elements in the cutscenes, but I just ate it up. I thought it was fantastic. And then you revisit it years later. I mean, at the time, I only really knew 2 Kojima games, Metal Gear Solid and Metal Gear Solid 2. And I feel like his particular style had not been so firmly established in my mind at the time. And, now that I've, played so much more of his work, of course, a lot of it didn't exist then. Like Metal Gear Solid 3, I think, really kind of ingrained in me, like, okay, I like what this Kojima guy does.
This Kojima guy's not bad.
Yeah, and but now though you revisit Twin Snakes and it's like, wow, this does not feel like a Kojima game. Like it just does not. It doesn't have that right. Like Metal Gear, like the one time that I think that Metal Gear was really successfully done without Kojima was Metal Gear Rising, and that was, I think the reason it worked so well is because Platinum just did their thing that they do with it.
Yeah.
They made that their total bonkers Platinum style game. But
now, does anybody remember the kind of knockoff Metal Gear series called Siphon Filter?
Oh yeah.
Oh gosh.
That game has a taser in it.
Yes.
And when you like shoot a guy with it, you can just like hold the button down and it'll eventually catch on fire.
Yeah.
It's like hilarious.
I actually really like Siphon Filter. But yeah, it was clearly like an answer to Metal Gear Solid's popularity.
Yeah. A friend of mine I think it was the first one. He got at least the first one, and
I think I have all three. I have the 3 PlayStation ones.
I want to say I remember watching him play a little. I don't remember playing a little myself. I don't really remember what he thought of it, but I remember when they were free on with PlayStation Plus. I tried a little bit of the third game because I just thought, okay, if this series is worth playing, then the third game is going to give me the best indicator of if it's aged at all okay. And it played pretty rough.
The thing I like about this is for how complex the series got gameplay wise, it's really refreshing just to play something that's like not. That the bodies will disappear when you kill them.
Yeah.
You don't have to hide them. you know, like shake them down for anything. It's kind of nice.
I mean, I remember a friend of mine at the time, Tenchu came out around the same time, and both are obviously Tenchu.
Tenchu? No, that's just how it came out when you said it.
I didn't think I said
Tenchu.
Tenchu came out at the same time. I think it came out maybe like a month before or something. I can't quite remember, but a friend of mine was kind of debating whether he wanted to spend his money on Metal Gear Solid or Tenchu, and he heard, the big criticism at the time that this came out was that it was apparently really short, and he decided he was really glad that he decided to get Tenchu instead, and that's a series that I want to delve into a bit more. I vaguely remember playing the first game and just thinking, wow, I can see about 2 squares in front of me because of the fog. No, I think it's intentional though, because it takes place at night and you're a ninja in the shadows. But I had no idea until just a couple of years ago that series was made by From Software. It makes Dark Souls and all. Like that. I was like, what?
From Software also did Armored Core, the Armored Core series.
Yeah.
I remember Metal Gear Solid being so popular, they put out that the VR missions.
Which I don't think I've ever played that.
It was like all the tutorial stages for Metal Gear Solid. They just expanded them out to even more crazy stuff. Metal Gear Solid was huge.
Yeah, stealth in general, like, really went through this phase where stealth was like the coolest thing.
I'm gonna play some Tekken. Some Tekken.
I love Tekken.
That was another one when I worked in retail. It was some people called.
Tell your Tomb Raider.
Yeah, well, there's one that said, "Do you have Tom B. Raider?" The Tomb Raider. That was one.
Tom B. Raider.
And what was the other one? Diablo is the one I liked a lot too.
Diablo. I don't know if I ever have any good retail stories. I worked at GameStop for a while.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Ninja Gaiden.
Yep. That
was a very common one. But that's not a big deal. That's not as bad as Tom B. Raider.
Everyone, I would say the vast majority of people who say Ninja Gaiden today first said Ninja Gaiden.
Sure.
Yeah, I definitely did. This is a great game. I'm not very good at it, but man, it just when like in the 32-bit and like in PS1 and PS2 era, like Namco was crazy with the amount of like extra stuff they'd put in their games. Mm-hmm. Like so many extra characters, extra
and, like,
modes.
The fact that
they were like the kings of CG at the time too.
Yeah, in this era of fighting game, like it was like this really big deal that every character had like their own FMV ending, right?
Yeah.
So that was like, this, like it's so funny to think back to when FMVs were like this big reward.
Yeah.
Like, and it really felt like a legitimately good reward.
Mm-hmm.
And like,
they were cool.
Yeah.
Right.
They're still cool. What are you talking about? I love watching these.
Not the charms worn off, but they're still. But yeah, back then, because like you're going from, Super Nintendo to
movies,
to PlayStation. It's like, okay, this is like a movie. Exactly.
Yeah. I mean, it's funny looking back at like how not that good the animation quality is, but I mean, but back then, I mean, it's definitely got some 90s charm still now, but I don't think you could get away with the reward for accomplishing a task to just be a movie now. Like
Yeah.
I don't feel like when I played a game in the late 90s and I got a movie, it's like this is the best possible thing they could have given me. But now, like if I were to play a modern game and it just gave me an extra cutscene, I'd be like, that's it.
But with Tekken,
That's the Order 1886. Nothing but cutscenes.
but with Tekken, I mean, especially like Tekken 3, you would get a new character every time you beat the game.
Mm-hmm.
There's so many extra characters.
Yeah,
It still looks good. This
never-
game actually runs in 480i completely, and
on the
just natively.
PS2
Or
Looks
PS1.
good.
or PS3 or PS1. Why can't I get my PS numbers out of my mouth?
Tekken's like the slow, methodical fighting game. It feels more realistic to me than, well, obviously than like Street Fighter.
Right.
I mean, I know you're fighting a guy with a leopard head, but
Yeah. But I mean, like Virtua Fighter was like a little bit more.
right, Virtua Fighter kind of the same thing. You got to kind of like take your time and, the attacks are a little slower than
Yeah.
like Mortal Kombat or something.
Who was the tree guy?
Oh, Mokujin.
Yeah. I liked him. Like I never really got into Tekken. I mean, I played it a little bit because my cousin liked it and some of my friends liked it. But like the only what I would deem a traditional non-Smash Brothers fighting series that I've like really enjoyed was Soul Calibur. Like that, I think it's the fact that it's weapons-based combat. Just something about that feels more interesting and tangible to me than punch kick.
That's kind of partially why I like Power Stone so much.
Mhm.
It's not really a fighting game in a way because you gotta like, there are weapons and you have to like collect the stones and then you get your superpower. I don't know.
It's very very Smash Brothers esque,
Yes.
especially
Yeah.
two
Yes, definitely
with the four players. I actually just got to.
I remember liking Power Stone back in the day, but I haven't played it and
Next time you're here, we'll have to play it.
I probably haven't played it in 15 years.
Yeah, next time you come here, we'll play it because it's pretty great. A lot of people will argue that the first one is better because the second one is maybe too chaotic, with like the changing stages. They kind of like fall apart, and you move from like surface to surface, and with 4 players at the same time. But I think it's pretty
I like them both. They're
Yeah.
both fun.
There's the collection on PSP that has 1 and
Yep.
2 on it. It's a pretty good
It's
deal.
very good.
That was
Very
just on
good.
sale actually, I think, digitally. Might have been like $4 or something. I wish I still had the first one. I just bought the second one again. I had it when it came out because there was a point where Dreamcast games were just so cheap when everyone was just clearing them all out.
Yep.
And you look at it now, and so, I think about like Street Fighter 3 Third Strike. It's like a $70, $80 game now, and like I had it. I wish I didn't sell it because that one it has a 240p mode on it, and that's pretty cool for stuff like that. So it's like arcade perfect.
I'm always on the hunt for Bangayo
Oh, yep.
on Dreamcast. That's a hard one to find.
Yep, that's
That's one of my favorite Dreamcast games, though.
and it's crazy. It's like it's such a unique game.
It's great.
Yeah, I played that one on stream like I want to say maybe October or something.
Yeah, watching that stream, it actually kind of like I was really interested, but then I was like, I don't know.
You should
Maybe
get
I'll be
the
okay not. Maybe I'll be
N64
okay
version.
not spending $80 or $90 or however much it costs. Yeah, but isn't the N64 one not as good, or it might do I have that backwards? It's more expensive, I think.
Yeah.
Actually.
It probably has like a better control method because it's like designed for the N64 controller originally.
Mm-hmm.
But it's crazy to me that like you've got Power Stone 1, Power Stone 2, like you've got like this system that lasted a year and a half essentially. Like you've got these like sequels and stuff on it.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, just about all the major games had sequels, I think.
Yeah, another thing that kind of blows my mind is that we watched this video. You already put out this video to Patreon subscribers, right?
The Fuse? Yeah.
The Fuse video game magazine. We did a
video game magazine of the future.
The video game magazine of the future. Fuse. I think people were saying that they saw like one other.
Yeah, they said there's another volume of it. But I've never seen it.
So I guess there's maybe only two. But yeah, I mean, it's a great idea, like a video game magazine, but it's on a VHS tape. It's a different sort of format, but you get the same sort of information, but you get video of the games. But what blew me away about that tape, we just kind of did
just like a sit down. We watched it through and recorded us talking about it.
Let's watch.
Yeah.
And we haven't put it up for Patreon subscribers. But what blew me away about that tape is that it's previewing Ocarina of Time and Sonic Adventure at the same time. Like, in my mind, like those games should be so far apart. It's nuts.
Yeah, it's weird. The tape itself, it's set up very much like a bunch of different magazines. It takes pointers from different magazines. It has a kind of news and rumors segment where they describe and talk about everything like Quarterman did in EGM. That's pretty interesting, but definitely not. It probably was not the right format to be the video magazine of the future, though.
It was a good effort, though.
Because DVD was already out.
Yeah. I totally forgot how like Eddie has like this incredible animation. I feel like
yeah, he's gonna be in the new one, I guess. He's in 7.
I am kind of mesmerized watching him.
Yeah,
I know.
I mean, this it's crazy.
I like the way he moves.
I mean, was he not in later Tekken games?
No, because a lot of people they considered him like really broken.
Really?
Yeah.
I'm surprised they didn't just.
They replaced them with a female. What is it? Capoeira or whatever, like the kind of fighting style. I think her name was Christy, maybe.
Huh.
I might be wrong though. I'm probably wrong on the name. I haven't really played any Tekken since this one. Although I do have Tekken Tag Tournament 2 on the Wii U because it has like a lot of exclusive Nintendo stuff in it. Where you can make all the characters look like different Nintendo characters.
Oh yeah, I forgot about
Does that have amiibo support?
No, it was a launch game.
Oh, was it?
Yeah. I think I got it as like $11. You know what I just got for $11 is this game called Exist Archive.
Yeah.
On the PS4, and it's a Tri-Ace game, and I guess it's kind of a spiritual successor to Valkyrie Profile.
Exist Archive?
Yeah, it was like $11 on Amazon for PS4.
Huh.
I mean, I had it in my wish list because I saw the Tri-Ace on there, and I saw it was like $11. I can't say no to that. So, but it looks pretty good.
I'd love to do an episode on Star Ocean.
Oh yes, you definitely should. Yeah. So what are like some dream episodes that you? I mean, is there any episodes that you started to do that you kind of abandoned because you decided you didn't want to do it?
It happens a lot. I'll think of a topic or just like a series that I love and I want to do an episode on it, but when you start doing research, you realize there's really not much you can dig up on it.
Yeah.
Especially a lot of the Japanese franchises that it's just really hard to like get in contact with somebody over there, and they're pretty tight-lipped about development history. So like I wanted to do an episode on Star Ocean, but there's not much out there about Star Ocean. So
yeah, I mean, I think the most interesting is wasn't it like the largest SNES cartridge made or something like that?
Yeah. And like the formation of Tri-Ace was kind of cool because there was a bunch of people that worked on the Tales series, and they weren't satisfied with. I can't remember what Tales game it was on the Super Nintendo, but they thought they could make it better, so they made Star Ocean.
Interesting.
Yeah, and then there was like this sort of split off of Tri-Ace, right? That was Tri-Crescendo, or I don't know if it was really a true split, but
the ones that made Eternal Sonata.
Yeah.
Yep.
And they also worked on, I believe they also worked on Baten Kaitos.
I think you're right.
A lot of stuff, for like Japanese development. Like I love the Shmupulations site. It has like all the interviews, translated interviews. Are you familiar with that? Norm, I think I've seen you mention it before.
Say that again.
Shmupulations.
Yes, he does great work.
Yeah.
Hey, I want to read this comment.
Okay.
I think it's funny. The Nintendo fanboy historian. He sucks at research and knows very little outside Nintendo. Always gets it wrong and shows his bias.
It's
a great comment.
It's so tough. I mean, especially when like if you cover like a couple Nintendo things in a row, then people I think decide like, oh, you just talk about Nintendo stuff.
It's not a bias. I mean, I like Nintendo, but
they're just involved with so many things.
Yeah, they're everywhere, and they usually have the best stories. I mean, that's kind of what history's all about. You want to tell a good story. Nintendo's got a lot of good stories.
Yeah.
So,
and and a lot of those stories come from like the mid to late '80s when they were pretty much just like completely in control. When you should do something. I don't know if you on the whole deal where nobody could make games for other systems if they were releasing a game on the NES.
Yeah, I touched on that a little in the Tengen episode.
Oh, right.
I
mentioned some of the crazy rules they had.
Ultra and Namcot and that kind of stuff.
Well, it's like Ultra and Ultra is like the one I always think of.
And they had if you made a game on the NES, you had like a 1 year. You had to be exclusive to the NES for a year or something. Their licensing rules were crazy.
Yeah, I mean, it was as a kid growing up with a Master System, it was very frustrating.
Now that is it's rare to meet somebody who grew up with a Master System instead of the NES.
Yeah, I mean, my brother got an NES
one
later
at some
on.
point, right? Oh, it was your brother's.
Yeah, and it was because of Space Harrier. I got a Space Harrier because I got a Master System because I love Space Harrier in the arcade, and it was you'd always get a lot of games that were knockoffs of popular NES games.
Yeah.
But I think if you look at Phantasy Star 1, Dragon Quest 1, and Final Fantasy 1, I think I wouldn't necessarily say I like Phantasy Star 1 the best, but I feel like in a lot of ways it's the most impressive of that sort of RPG trilogy. I don't know, maybe trilogy's not the right word.
Wait, what is the most impressive?
Between Phantasy Star 1, Final Fantasy 1, and Dragon Quest 1, I think Phantasy Star 1 is the most impressive.
By a long shot. No, I'm just saying, like, graphically, if you compare the battle backgrounds, like the size of the enemies, it was, there's 3 planets. That's huge.
Yeah. As a game, I think I like Final Fantasy 1 more, but
well, that's not a good opinion.
Bad opinion. Final Fantasy 1 is, as a kid, it was a struggle to get past Garland.
Yeah.
I mean, that game is brutally hard.
Yeah,
For a child, anyway. I mean, I've beaten it since I've grown up, and
I mean, I prefer the PlayStation version. But
the updated one.
Yeah.
Yeah, the one on Game Boy Advance was really good. They toned down the difficulty big time because I played on Game Boy Advance and I beat Garland in like 10 minutes. It was real big. I was like, yeah.
Hey, thanks, Blade Blur.
Yeah, Blade Blur is like constant, like every week. The
Well,
$2.
not every week.
It made a donation. Thank you.
Yeah.
So how much of that am I gonna get?
Well, I mean, when it all goes through like YouTube stuff, it's like 80 cents probably once it goes through everything.
Yeah. So I'll see like 15 cents.
Yeah.
I'm just kidding.
I think we may
I don't
have the most
money.
people we've ever had in a stream though tonight.
Yeah, I think this might be tied for the
Saturn
that
one?
Saturn Games stream.
Oh, Saturn game, that's popular. Saturn people. I tell you what, there's some diehard Saturn.
Oh.
Yeah. We're our next 200 series RGB is planned to be Saturn, and
We're excited to see the reaction to it. We're excited to see,
Yeah.
like, because we've noticed a lot of N64 fans kind of come out of the woodwork that, whenever we do N64 stuff, we feel that Saturn people might be the same way.
There can't be as many Saturn people as there are N64 people. There just can't be, but I'd love to be surprised.
When I was researching Bleem, actually, I wanted to learn more about how emulation works and kind of like how, like the technical aspects of a console. And I mentioned Sega Saturn in one of my tweets, and I got so many responses from Sega Saturn fans telling me what is inside the Saturn and how advanced it was for its time. And like, so there's some like diehard Sega Saturn fans.
It's interesting because we had this before we released our N64 RGB episode. It was unquestionably the most requested was N64, and I was like, it's going to be interesting seeing the reaction to this. And of course it did do very, very well. And then our biggest video is our N64 anti-aliasing hack video, which is not even something that we encourage or even think is good. It's just something that we thought was interesting and wanted to tell people about. And I hate that's our biggest viewed video. But N64, it brings in people, and which, I'm a big N64 fan myself, but I always kind of felt alone in that. And it was just because,
I just unlocked Kuma. I got to play as Kuma in Tekken Force mode. Sorry.
It was a good time in gaming in my life, I think, because it was when I was, I was the right age for it, and I was, really following what was coming up and, getting all hyped up and stuff. And so I love N64, but, most people I talk to online are like, N64 really hasn't aged well. But then you put something about N64 on YouTube and people go bonkers over it.
Yep.
I still like the N64. I mean, as far as age, well, I think graphically wise, yeah, the textures are kind of like, they look kind of muddy, but
I mean, and the camera controls sometimes aren't great.
Oh, it's just chicken. This is the one they had. This is where the chicken comes from. Every time you pick up the food, the voice goes chicken. It's amazing.
But yeah, I mean, I love the N64. I can understand why if you didn't grow up with it, it might be a little hard to go back to. I mean, I was just playing it constantly in those days, and so it's.
Hang on.
Wait. Got a special.
Hang on.
I'm just in my heart.
I just gotta turn it up for it to say it. You can barely hear it, but it goes chicken.
That was not something I was aware of.
No, it's pretty great.
I think I had a PlayStation growing up. My buddy who lived across the street had a Nintendo 64. I loved my PlayStation, but the one thing that 64 had was those fun platformers like Banjo-Kazooie and Super Mario 64. And the PlayStation had a few, but
they had Croc.
Just
pretty much.
Croc.
Yeah.
Argonaut Software's finest game, easily. But like, I think my favorite platformer on PlayStation was probably Spyro or Ape Escape.
Yeah.
But yeah, the 64 just seemed to had those platformers that was like.
Yeah, and
so
I think
good.
for a lot of people, it was kind of a bit of a shooter system because people were really into the GoldenEye and Turok and that kind of stuff. I don't think PlayStation really had as much in terms of like first person shooters.
Hey,
well, at least not once. At least not once.
I like Medal of Honor.
I did play a little Medal of Honor.
64 at GoldenEye and Perfect Dark.
Yeah.
Turok, where you could see 6 inches in front of you.
Yeah, seriously.
But yeah, I mean, I love my N64, but at the same time, that was also the time period when I was starting to get into RPGs. So,
You're a big defender of Quest 64, aren't you?
Well, I wouldn't say a big defender, but
it gets a bad rap to it.
It gets a bad rap because here's the thing, it was this promised game that N64 fans were just that they needed,
Right.
because it was the first RPG for the N64. I mean, the N64
people wanted to like it.
Yeah.
Like people, I don't think. Well, once it came out, I don't think they wanted to like it. But the thing is, Final Fantasy VII came out, and every RPG had to be Final Fantasy VII. It had to be cinematic. It had to be big. It had to be bombastic.
Yeah.
And that was like the standard for what an RPG had to strive to be. And Quest 64 was just like, man, you go wander around and talk to people and get into battles. And there's nothing wrong with that. But in the context of that time, it was like, you're saying this is the system's answer to Final Fantasy VII?
They were trying to.
Right. That's what I remember. The advertising was like, "Hey, we have RPGs too.
Yep.
Check out Quest 64."
What a stupid name for a game too.
The developers, though, the people who actually made the game, I don't think they were trying to compete with Final Fantasy VII. They were just trying to make an RPG that they thought was fun.
Somebody put Quest on a pedestal.
Yeah.
Right.
And it wasn't the developers.
Yeah, I mean, I think of it almost feels like an NES Dragon Quest game. There's no cutscenes. There's literally no cutscenes. There's no opening cutscene whatsoever. You're just there, and you just talk to people. You wander around and you talk to people, and you wander around and you're just going on an adventure. It's like a 3D NES game is really what it is. It really is a 3D NES game. There's nothing really wrong with the game design. It's just that it is not that big, epic, bombastic RPG, cinematic, everything that people of that era wanted. But if you can go back and enjoy a NES RPG today, then I think you can go back and enjoy Quest 64. It is not an amazing
Maybe you should
game.
do an episode.
It sounds like a My Life in Gaming episode.
Yeah. In defense
of Quest 64.
I mean, but here's the reality. I do get bored with Quest 64 when I play it, but conceptually, there's nothing wrong with it.
Now, this game's really boring, but...
But come on, guys.
It's not that bad. If you can play it for more than 20
it's
minutes.
a pretty short game. I want to say it's like 10 or 12 hours long, but like...
Which is pretty much what I wish every game was these days.
Yeah. Yeah, but it does sort of feel like it's you're kind of like, okay, like I'm a little done with it by about the 6-hour mark, but it's just it's a fun charming game. I mean, you will find Quest 64 defenders out there. Like, you will find people who legitimately love that game, whereas I'm just kind of an apologist for it, I guess.
Yeah,
I'm not.
I mean,
I'm not
you're
saying
apologizing. You're like apologist for it, and then there's people in the chat that are like, "Don't play Quest 64. It's not worth it."
But
Don't listen to
there
them.
are people who really love it, actually. And did you know there's a Game Boy Color, or it might even just be regular Game Boy? I think it's Color though. There is I think it's just, I don't know if it has Quest 64 in the title, but it's called like Brian's Quest or something like that. It's like this overhead.
Brian.
Yeah, well, Brian is the character you play as in Quest.
Oh, of course.
64, yeah. So
It sounds like the kind of name that the main character of Quest 64.
I am the legendary hero, Brian.
It sounds like exactly the name that the hero of Quest 64 would have.
Well, come on, he's got that like weird little floppy thing out that comes out of his hair, though.
I literally could not tell you a single thing about Quest 64 except for probably the box art.
Well, it's got this. I mean, it's got.
I mean, if you're a PlayStation, if you're growing up and you had a PlayStation as your main system, Quest 64 like made you laugh. It was a joke.
Pretty much.
Now, I think it's Chronicles of Aiden or something like that. Like, I've never played that, but if you watch videos of it, it does look pretty bad. I was like,
there's another RPG on it.
On the N64? Well,
Yeah.
other than Paper Mario, of course.
Somebody mentioned Ogre Battle.
Oh yeah, well, I mean that's.
I mean, I don't know if I would quite call that an RPG, but
Yeah,
I mean,
that's
that's
more
a strategy
strategy.
RPG.
Yeah,
I mean,
that's a good game. It is a good game. It's.
I don't really care for Ogre Battle, but
Would you consider Harvest Moon an RPG?
no, I mean that's like more like what, simulation or something.
Farming simulator.
I mean, here's the thing. I think it's really funny because, people who are super big RPG fans, I feel like any other game that they like that is not really an RPG, but they like it, they call it an RPG anyway, because it maybe has these tangential qualities that are kind of RPG-like. It's overhead, or you don't fight monsters in an action-based system. This is an RPG. You open up treasure chests. This is an RPG.
Yeah.
I'm loving playing as Kuma here. He has this kick, and it just like makes him go flying.
But yeah, Aiden Chronicles, that game actually does look really bad. I've never played it, but maybe I should give it a try sometime. But of course, I mean, obviously it goes without saying that Paper Mario is the best RPG on the system, but I feel like Quest 64 needs someone to stand up for it,
And you're that person.
Well,
You are that guy.
There are people who stand up for it a lot more than I do.
I'm looking at the box art right now.
Yep.
With Brian holding his staff of electricity.
It's kind of got an interesting battle system though. You've got like the 4 elements, and
tell us more.
And
It's so original.
They're mapped to the C buttons, and you like do like different attacks like depending on how much you've leveled up each element. And in the battle, each turn you've got this circle around you, and you can move anywhere within that circle. Like, it's all like positional turn-based battling. It's actually like it's interesting.
That actually sounds decent, I think.
Yeah, it is.
It's just it's an easy game to make fun of.
I agree. I mean, I get it. I rented it, back when it came out, because it's like I was already hearing that it wasn't getting good reviews, but it's like, this is the first RPG on the N64. I need to try it.
Yeah, it was the first and last.
You were one of those people that put the game on the pedestal.
Yep.
No,
I blame you.
I didn't even buy it until more, I don't know, probably in the past 8 or so years. That was when I beat it. I just ran it one time.
I'm a big Banjo-Kazooie fan,
Mm-hmm.
and I have argued that it is better than Super Mario 64.
I strongly disagree, but I like both games.
Oh, they're both phenomenal games. Like, probably two of the best games on the 64. But I enjoyed Banjo-Kazooie more.
Banjo-Kazooie for me has always, like, I loved the heck out of it the first time I played it, but it never felt as replayable as Mario 64 to me. Like, I always just kind of got a little more bored with it, and I think it's because
Gran Turismo.
Banjo-Kazooie is more about, like, you start off, you gain a lot of new moves, and then it's kind of just finding things, locating things, solving puzzles, and then once you've solved that stuff and found the things, then there's not as much to do revisiting the game. Mario 64 has this, incredibly versatile movement system. I mean, Mario has incredible acrobatics that, in my opinion, practically no game since has matched, because Mario 64 was so unafraid of just letting you do anything. If you could pull off a jump that let you go somewhere that you really should have taken a more complicated route to go there, they didn't care. They let you go there anyway. I feel like a lot of later games, including later Mario games, sort of reeled in the controls a lot more, and we're just afraid of letting you do things that you weren't necessarily supposed to do. I feel like that's where Breath of the Wild is so refreshing, because it is not afraid of. It's just like, it
lets you go.
If you figure out a way to get over there, I mean, more power to you. And I feel like Mario 64 had the same attitude, where it's just like, if you can get there, I don't care how you got there. It's just the way Mario moves in that game, like, I think holds up so well.
That's a good point. I do remember with Mario 64, his movement was really good, and you were always curious about what's over there. I remember getting on the castle roof was the big deal, and when you finally figured out how to do it, it was amazing.
And even to get on the tippy top, like, it's always like this, I wonder if I can stand on top of that, and not a lot of games give you versatile enough movement to really let you experiment and be like, can I get up there? And that to me is what's so special about Mario 64. Me and a friend, we had what we called Mario tests, and we would, like, just figure out all of this wild stuff that we could go do in the game, or maybe we could get a star without doing this key thing that you're supposed to do, and we found like a new way to get up on a hill or get up on a wall or something, and we would write out these challenges to each other that be like, get to this star without getting the Koopa shell or without getting the wing cap or something like that, because we figured out a way to do it. And most other games are too afraid of giving you the tools and the power to do something like that. And I think that's what's so special about Mario 64 to me. It was just so infinitely replayable, because I could find new ways to do the same thing all the time.
Yeah. One reason I did like Banjo-Kazooie a little more was I absolutely loved the characters and kind of just charm of the game. Like, I loved the goofy voices.
Yeah.
And, like, I loved the personality of Kazooie.
She's mean.
Yeah, she's
like everyone.
A jerk. And I'm also a sucker for collectathons. Like, I love collecting stuff and trying to complete the game 100%. So, but to be fair, in Mario 64's defense, it amazes me to this day that was a launch game.
Yeah.
And it is still, like, one of the best games on the 64.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, it's incredible what that game did.
It's a testament to Miyamoto. I mean, because this is the last game where he is credited as director.
Yeah.
I mean, it's really incredible. with collect, like, enough time has like I was a big defender of the collectathon back in the era. If that was a time, in my life where I had all the time in the world to do 100% games, like you said, and I liked going for 100%, and so that kind of thing was really appealing to me. And there was a time where on the internet people were like, "Oh, another N64 collectathon." And I'm like, "Come on, guys, this is fun." And it's funny because now we've got like a lot of hype for that very sort of concept coming back with ukulele. And I'm excited to revisit that. So it's time, it's time to indulge in that sort of thing again. But I kind of weathered the whole collectathon thing a little longer than most people did, because I think by Donkey Kong 64 most people were really sick of it, and I actually really
and that game is like guilty of like super collectathon.
Yeah, wait till you hear Troy's story about it though.
And I think just like 2 weeks ago, someone discovered a new item to collect in that game.
Oh yeah,
did you see that story?
Yeah,
it was like a hidden coin or something. It's like
there's like a banana
we're still finding stuff
under a hill or something.
Yes.
Yeah, but I mean, it's like I think like the thing is with that game is there's 5 characters, and then each character has their own set of colored bananas in each level that only they can get, and like every character like gets their own giant bananas and their own little bananas. Like every character has their own like gargantuan set of things to collect. But you know what? It came out just before Thanksgiving. And I had all the time in the world to do nothing but play.
And you're like,
Donkey
challenge
Kong
accepted.
And like, I mean, here is a game that takes like a platformer that takes like as long to beat as like an RPG.
Yeah.
And more than that to complete. I want to say my completion file on is like 60 hours or something. I'd have to check. I don't know. It's a really long game. But I mean, I 100%ed it in like probably like a week or less. Like, I mean, it's Thanksgiving break. Why not? And I just ate it up. But I'll tell you what was one collectathon too many for me, and it was Banjo-Tooie. And I don't know what it was like, and it may have just been, that was competing with Final Fantasy IX. And, I had to make what at the time seemed a very tough decision between playing Final Fantasy IX over Thanksgiving or Banjo-Tooie. Because these are like both must-have games. And I chose Final Fantasy IX, and in retrospect, very much rightly so.
That's a good choice, yeah.
And so, I binge on Final Fantasy IX over Thanksgiving break. And then, not too long after I finished it, I'm like, okay, well, it's time to go get Banjo-Tooie. So I got Banjo-Tooie, and it was like, and again, I guess school was going again, and of course it wasn't long before Christmas break, but I don't fully know what the circumstances were, because that game is not bigger than Donkey Kong 64, but somehow it felt bigger, and in a bad way. It was just like, this is too much.
Yeah, Tooie is not canon. I'm just kidding. Actually, can we talk about Final Fantasy IX for a second?
Yes.
Because I received that.
Final Fantasy IX.
So I
might start at the beginning of this race, and the instant replay is hilarious. I'm figuring the buttons. I'm just sitting there and kind of go. It's in these like awesome camera angles when it's happening. You guys will have to wait for it, but sorry, I mean to interrupt.
Let's talk about two things. One, the strategy guide for Final Fantasy IX.
What a mess!
Oh, that is infamous. I've got it.
Strategy guide. I got Final Fantasy IX with the guide for Christmas, and I loved Final Fantasy IX. That strategy guide can go to hell. That was the worst strategy guide I have ever purchase.
Yeah.
That you had to go online to like complete. It was like DLC for.
It's so funny because, people who haven't played Final Fantasy 11 like have a totally different connotation for play online, and it's because play online's main purpose ultimately was the hub, the hub for logging in and managing your account and everything for Final Fantasy 11. But most people, I would say more people, think of how horrible the Final Fantasy 9 guide was. Yeah.
Yep, that's how I remember it. And the second thing I want to talk about is this recent resurgence of Final Fantasy 9. I don't know if you guys have noticed this, but a lot of people are looking back on Final Fantasy for the PlayStation, and they're saying 9 was the best Final Fantasy on the PlayStation.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of.
It's pretty close.
It's one of those games that, I kind of. There was a lot of people who didn't necessarily like it at the time, and a lot of people who did, and I loved it at the time.
I think if you played the SNES Final Fantasies at that time, if you played the SNES Final Fantasies when they came out, the US ones like 2 and 3, and then when 9 came out, you probably liked it.
Right. Well,
but if you started with 7 and never went back and played the old ones, you probably didn't like it.
I tested the waters with 7. I didn't finish it, and then I played Chrono Trigger and then the Super Nintendo Final Fantasies, and at some point in there I played through 7 and 8. But with 9, I feel like kind of hand in hand with 9 is this other thing that really annoys me, and I feel like this has been going on for years, but this tendency to be like, Final Fantasy 7 wasn't actually that good.
In that voice specifically.
Yeah, in that voice specifically, yeah. And people wanting to be above liking Final Fantasy 7, to be like, I can say that this thing that was very popular when I was a kid, I can say that actually wasn't that good.
That was actually a garbage game.
Yeah.
My one complaint about 9, I loved the main characters, except the main villain, Kuja.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Kuja was kind of a lame. He was kind of a lame villain.
Yeah.
I kind of like the one thing I liked about Kuja though was that I kind of missed to some extent in Final Fantasy VIII the feeling of like chasing the villain that you got in Final Fantasy VII. And Kuja to some extent brought that back. There was kind of, you were following him around. You were kind of, you kept bumping into him. Whereas Final Fantasy VIII did not have that strong, like, villain presence, which granted, most Final Fantasy games actually kind of don't. But I do like that.
Yeah.
I would, of the PlayStation games, I would still say that 7 is my favorite, but I actually also like really love 8. I know there's a lot of people who really hate it, but I really love 8. My thing that I like to say about my favorite Final Fantasies is that 4 through 9, inclusive, all of those rank higher, and let's not even worry about what the order of those games are, but 4 through 9, I like those
more than
better.
Quest 64. They rank higher than Quest 64.
I like those more than Quest 64, but all of those, every single one of those, I like more than any Final Fantasy outside that range.
So
like those,
not
those
even
are
10,
the
not
top
10?
6, huh?
You wouldn't include 10 in there?
I like.
I'd include 10 in there.
I would. I thought 10 was great.
I might even include 12
10,
in there.
10 is.
12, I thought 12 was great too.
Yeah.
10. I love 12 too. Don't get me wrong. I mean, there's only one Final Fantasy that I guess kind of now there's like 2 Final Fantasies that I'm kind of like, I don't know. That would be 2, and I was kind of lukewarm
15.
on 15. 2, I want to revisit because I kind of just had a bad experience with the leveling system in it, and I think I approached it poorly. And I feel like I might appreciate 2 now more than I did at the time I played it. I played the PlayStation version. But 10 has always been pretty low on the totem pole. And don't get me wrong, like 10 is like the lowest Final Fantasy on my list that I still consider great.
See, 10 is really good. 10 was.
It's just not that high for me.
I didn't love 10
but
until the ending, and then the ending made me love the whole game.
The ending is really good. The ending's really good.
10's just like so. 10's just so smooth and clean.
Yeah, and it's it's colorful. It's a really colorful game. A lot of purples.
PS4, the remaster on PS4, it's like so clean.
Yeah.
The few things with 10 that kind of got me were, first of all, it was the first game without world map, and it was the first game where I felt like I never really saw the entire world.
See, in some ways, I felt like you travel through the whole world like area to area. You see it on the ground level more than you do.
You do, but I don't feel like I went through the whole globe. Every Final Fantasy game, you can literally circle the globe up to that point. And I always felt like there was more to Spira than they let on.
My ghost. Sorry. It's so stupid. It's like...
And 2, there was, I don't know, something about the art style of 10 just did not appeal to me as much as I don't know. I feel like I would like Final Fantasy X a lot more if it wasn't called Final Fantasy X. And I am, I consider myself to be, very open-minded about, what a Final Fantasy game can be. I don't, because part of the appeal of Final Fantasy is that it's something different every time. Yeah. I don't say like this can't be a Final Fantasy, but I don't know, just there were just things about it that didn't appeal to me as much. I feel like there are certainly some amazing music tracks in the games, amazing music tracks. But I feel like as a whole, it is one of the weaker Final Fantasy soundtracks. Not as weak as 15 soundtrack, but that soundtrack also just kind of doesn't really come up very often in the game.
Yeah.
But yeah.
So, not to change the subject, I'm just really surprised at how well all 3 of these games I played tonight have run. I think that...
Yeah, but Bleemcast worked. Like I said, there's only 3 games, but
they worked perfectly.
All worked really well. Yep.
I wonder, like, if you were to... I know it's not this simple, but if you were to assign a rough percentage value of how much more powerful the Dreamcast is compared to the PlayStation 1, I wonder what kind of exponential power you're looking at there to be able to emulate this well.
I don't know.
Sounds like a My Life in Gaming episode.
Yeah, we could put them side by side and somehow do it. I mean, in terms of like bits, I always thought of like the PS2, like that generation of being like, would be like 256 bit.
Obviously that's not true. That's not how bits work. But yeah, that's what people thought at the time. Like it has to double every time, right?
Yeah, people thought bits were like, oh, this is how powerful the system is.
Yeah, a raw indicator of power. The funny thing is, a lot of people are like, oh, well, Atari must be like 4-bit or 2-bit because
Atari's 8-bit.
It's not as powerful as the NES, but yeah, it's 8-bit. There's
basically they have the same processor. The NES and the Atari 2600.
Is it from the same processor family?
It's a Rico 6502, which
really I didn't realize that Atari used a Rico as well.
Let me double check. But it's the same CPU or the same kind of version
Yeah, something I recently learned due to the jailbroken firmware on the NT Mini is that ColecoVision shares hardware with Sega Master System, which is kind of wild to me.
Yeah,
like,
well, I mean, it's like SG-1000.
So the Atari 2600 used a 6507 from MOS Technology, but it is, according to Wikipedia, it is essentially a 6502 chip.
Yeah.
Which is what the NES used. So.
And then I guess the PC engine, the CPU is very, very similar, I understand, to the NES.
Yeah.
So that when you say Wikipedia, you are very, according to Wikipedia. So that's something you've probably like you've learned that pretty much, like doing what you do, that you can't rely a lot of times on Wikipedia. I mean, there's a lot of correct information. It is a good starting point, right?
Wikipedia is a portal.
Right.
It's a portal to more accurate information.
Right. What is like your usual method? I mean, if you need to what is the craziest thing that's extent you've gone to get some information that you weren't sure of? I mean, I guess as crazy as like research doing research can be.
I met an agent in a parking garage and we
passed off a briefcase.
No, we were researching when did you guys see the episode on video game rentals that we did?
Yeah.
My wife, Kristen, helped me with that episode. She helped with some research, and we were looking for a bill that Joe Blanton, he was a congressman, he wrote a bill in the 90s to basically ban video game rentals for a year after a game was released. And so we actually called his office in Washington, D.C. and asked for a copy of the bill because we couldn't find it online. We eventually did find it online, but yeah, we called his office and talked to the little assistant that answers the phones, and he was like, you want a bill Joe Blanton wrote from the 90s? We were like, yes. And here's what it's called, and we want a copy of it.
That's cool, though. I mean, so did they send it to you?
Eventually, we let them know, okay, we don't need it anymore because we found a copy online.
But
we had to dig deep into the Congress website.
Yeah,
it was not easy to find, but yeah, I guess calling a congressman that's going pretty far, I think.
Yeah, I think so.
The most unfortunate Wikipedia factual error that I trusted and I ended up being wrong about was in the Famicom 3D system episode. I said there were off the top of my head, I think it's six or seven games to support it. I'm drawing a blank on exactly how many there were, but I went through the effort of acquiring the Japanese versions of all of them, except, and most of them were Japan-only games. The only two that had American versions were Rad Racer and 3D World Runner.
Right.
And I thought, well, I'll just take the easy way out and get the American version of 3D World Runner, and I'll just talk about how the Japanese version support Famicom 3D system. Mm-hmm. And it's on the Wikipedia page listed as one of the compatible games. And I thought, well, I'll just use the American version and talk about it. And I tested and did everything with all the other games except for that one. And then an early comment was, I know it says on Wikipedia that 3D World Runner supports the 3D system, but it does not.
Yep, something little like that,
and it's so frustrating once the video's out and you can't change it.
Let me check. I bet it still says it on the Wikipedia page too. Let me check.
I mean, the Wikipedia page says that
We
Neil
start
Ro-
Can we start like a Wikipedia brigade where we go through video game articles on Wikipedia and correct them?
Okay, it looks.
That's a great idea, actually.
Yeah.
It looks like it has been removed.
Let's see. Famicom 3D system. List of compatible games. It is not here.
Yeah, Tobadasi Daisakusen. But JJ Tobadasi Daisakusen
there's Red Racer. Okay.
I
was like, where's Red Racer? Highway Star.
JJ is actually kind of a lot more fun than the original version.
I love Famicom Grand Prix 2. That is a fun game.
Yes.
Very fun 3D on too.
Yeah. I didn't. I really wasn't expecting that I would enjoy that as much as I did, but it's a pretty good game.
Mm-hmm. That was. I touched on that in my Satoru Iwata episode because that was one of the first games that he worked on with Miyamoto.
Yep. That was actually. When I beat that, I'd had it for a while, but I do streams with another site called the Backloggery on Monday nights, and we sort of did a little Iwata tribute the week after he died, and that was the game I played, and actually I beat all the races on that stream. So yeah, it's kind of like each race is like really long too. It's like 12-minute races, and it's actually, it plays really well. Something that would be an interesting thing to research that is, I think, hard to dig up a ton of information on is like that whole Famicom Disk System fax machine thing.
The
blue discs.
The blue discs, yeah. Okay, where you could like send in your high scores.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
that'd be cool. That would be really cool.
It's funny because my disc has some Japanese kids his 80 from the 80s anyway, his name and phone number and address. Of course I can't read it because it's in Japanese characters, but it's like it's there, it's stored on my disc.
Yeah,
it's crazy.
I'm just gonna finish this. I'm fascinated by the soundtrack for this game. It's pretty great. Gran Turismo 2. I'm curious.
Looking beautiful on Bleemcast.
It looks Gran Turismo 2 is even the first one is like a really good looking game. I mean, it was revolutionary at the time, but I've never been a simulator driving fan at all.
No.
And somehow I've ended up with every single Gran Turismo game except for the 5th one. I don't know how it happened.
No,
but
that one is that one for PS3, I think.
I have, I have all the PS2 ones because they all, push the hardware in a really interesting way. I mean, the PS2 ones,
1080i.
Yeah, only during the races, I think, not during the menu stuff. So it's constantly changing. But it's fascinating that they are able to do that with the hardware at the very end of the lifespan, pretty much.
Yeah.
I feel like at the time, like everyone was talking about Gran Turismo, like back in the PlayStation days, PS2 days, everyone was talking about Gran Turismo. But I feel like starting PS3 generation, there's no talk about it anymore. It doesn't seem like,
because I think they
really
got
cares.
delayed so much, and the PS3 generation was so drawn out.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I guess they generally release 2 games in the series.
Microsoft with Forza kind of took over the driving simulator genre. Like Forza's like the standard now, I feel like.
Yeah. That's the one that you hear people talking about. But Gran Turismo, like back then, I mean, I knew a lot of people who were just way into it, and I never really cared. Like I rented, it's kind of weird. Like there were a few genres of games like back in that era that like they weren't like games I would buy, but I was curious enough to rent them.
I mean that's what you said. You're
like
you could be bothered to rent a simulator every once in a while. Just
Yeah,
because
like
who knows? Maybe you'd find the one that made you really fall in love with the genre.
Yeah, well, I rented a bunch, N64, I don't know if I would call them simulators, but they were real car games,
Yeah.
Whereas, otherwise I normally stick to Mario Kart and F-Zero, but I played like Top Gear Rally and stuff like that. I ran a few. I played a little Ridge Racer on PS1, but
Cruising USA.
Oh yeah, no, that's my game.
That's
my game.
arcade though. I mean, that's arcade.
Right.
racing.
But I tend to not like.
I like arcade racing as much as the next guy.
I mean, I don't consider myself a car fan. Cars don't get me excited as a concept, but. But there are a few real car games that I do enjoy. Beetle Adventure Racing is absolutely phenomenal.
Yeah.
But yeah, like the whole idea of like, ooh, I can customize my car and I can buy parts for it and I can increase the suspension.
It feels exactly like the real thing, like driving the real thing.
Yeah, but all that just never did anything for me, and I never could.
I think that I could probably get into it if I was playing with like a real steering wheel, like a force feedback steering wheel, like sitting in a thing probably. But I mean, I'm kind of the same way. That's why I'm playing the arcade disc.
I've never felt like
you could just go drive your car.
Yeah, but even like in the arcade, like a real arcade machine with force feedback steering wheel, I've never really felt like it truly controlled like a real car. Like, and maybe that's just because I don't drive my real car fast enough to race it.
Yeah, just get on the highway and go crazy.
Maybe that's what it does feel like. I don't know, but
yeah.
I don't know. Steering wheels never felt convincing to me.
So now it's playing some. I was hoping for a new song because it just played Stone Temple Pilots on the last replay, but they're playing it again. So
Frank Strasser is asking, is San Francisco Rush N64 good? I liked it a lot back in the day, but I ran it a few times. I really enjoyed it. Lots of like secrets and shortcuts, and that made it a lot of fun. But I tried revisiting it a few years ago, and I could not get into it. But was it 2049 Rush 2049? Yeah. A lot of people really like that game, and
the Dreamcast version, I think, is what everyone likes.
Yeah, I saw the Dreamcast version in a store a few days ago, and I kind of wanted to get it, but I didn't.
How much was it expensive?
I think there might have not even been a price sticker on it, or maybe it was like 20. I don't know. I can't remember.
Yeah,
but I do want to get that eventually.
Well,
a
lot of those midway racing games are really good. I mean, you like cruising, but yeah. I mean, like the Rush games, the Thunder games, like Hydro Thunder was good. Arctic Thunder.
I never got that much into Hydro Thunder.
Well, that's too bad.
I always liked Wave Race.
Yeah.
I
liked Wave Race 64 was always a lot of fun.
You're talking about Mario 64, it being unbelievable that was a launch game as polished as that was in terms of what you could do. Wave Race blows me away too. Like that's a game that I feel like that should not exist with all the wave physics and the way that the riders move and all that. And yeah, that game, I can pop that game in anytime and have a good time. And it's really not even that much of a nostalgic thing for me because I played I don't think I remember a friend of mine was going to buy Wave Race, but he ended up buying Cruising USA instead. And we only played Wave Race on a rental a time or two. I never thought that much of it at the time, but then I finally bought it probably like 10 years ago. And I really got into it. And so I feel like, considering it's not that much of a nostalgic thing for me, and I still think it's amazing, I think that's really a testament to how good it actually is.
Here's a question for you. Did you ever play Wave Race on the Game Boy?
That game is bad.
But it's funny, like,
A lot of people think of 64 as the first one, and it is.
Right. People don't know about Wave Race on the Game Boy.
It's like a weird overhead, right?
Yeah, it's an overhead racer.
I bought that for like $4 a few years back, thinking it's probably okay, and whew,
you don't get rid of a lot of games, but you got rid of that one.
I did get rid of that one. Yeah, I couldn't. I was not going to put the time in to beat that, so I got rid of it. But
it's just one of those like little known facts. Like Wave Race existed before the 64.
It's a player's choice game too, which presumably means it sold at least 1 million copies if Nintendo stuck to their rules. Wave Race Blue Storm was always kind of a controversial game, I guess, and to this day you don't really see a lot of love for it.
Was it just a disappointment?
It just feels different. The controls are a lot more challenging. You really have to make heavy use of the R&L buttons to really sort of lean into your turns, and it's a more difficult game. And it's interesting, when I started working on our GameCube episode, I was kind of afraid to go back to it because I'm like, I'd kind of gotten back into the N64 Wave Race, and I really liked it, and I thought, I don't think the GameCube one is really going to be just kind of as instantly accessible fun. I wasn't sure I was going to like it, and I played through a championship, and I'm like, yeah, this is kind of rough. But it's kind of funny. Then when we did the stream for that episode, I was like, I'm actually kind of getting back into it. It's a game that you gotta give it time to sort of warm up to it. It's not, the difference is that Wave Race 64 is just instantly accessible. The controls just feel great right away, and Blue Storm is a little bit more of a technical game.
Yeah. All right. So, Norm, do you want to tease your next episode, or is it still a little ways off?
No, I could tease it. Actually, right now I'm working on the Blu-ray exclusive episode.
Oh, right. When is that? I mean, that's pretty close to being finished up, right? I mean, just the Blu-ray itself.
Once I finish this exclusive episode, it's pretty much done. But yeah, I'm working on an exclusive episode. I don't want to reveal what it is yet, but I finished the Bleem episode, and I was like, all right, I got to get this Blu-ray done. So
yeah,
I'm going full on with the Blu-ray.
That's cool, though. Are you doing all the authoring yourself?
Yeah. So I'm learning as I go.
Nice.
So just probably why it's taking so long.
But it's like remastering a lot of your really old episodes, probably too, right?
Yeah, and I'm kind of a perfectionist where I kept every file so I can go back and remaster everything. So that's nice. But as far as the next one to be on YouTube, it's going to be about Super Mario RPG.
Oh,
so I'm excited about that one. I've recorded all the footage, and I've done most of the research. So that should be out hopefully near the end of April.
And like game focused episodes are not super common for you anymore. I mean, like the last one I think you did was Mario 2, wasn't it?
I think the last one I did was Star Tropics.
Oh, right.
Yeah, that was a while ago.
Yeah, and that was a while ago. It's tough with specific games because it has to have kind of a good story behind it. And Mario RPG is a good story because it was the first collaboration. I couldn't believe this. The first collaboration that Square ever did and that Nintendo ever did.
What?
Seriously.
And then they had a falling out right after, probably, right?
As in two companies working together on a game. The first time Nintendo ever did it, and the first time Square ever did it.
Yeah, I think that makes sense.
I'm trying to rack my brain because that almost.
Yeah, I didn't believe it at first, but I can't think of another example where Nintendo.
I mean, would you consider?
And I'm not talking about you can't say HAL Laboratory because Nintendo basically owned HAL Laboratory.
Yeah. Well, what about Argonaut Software and stuff like that.
But they were pretty much funding them too.
Yeah, this is like
This is like equal partners, sort of.
Right, and the way that their logo is like one after another at the beginning.
Yeah, you get Square, you have Nintendo, and like Square translated the game for North America, and then Nintendo helped with giving it the Nintendo flair when Square translated it. So
that's so cool.
Yeah, it's interesting, and just like some of the stories about development are cool. Like, Square pitched the idea because Square's RPGs weren't selling very well in North America. So Square wanted, we'll put Mario in an RPG, and then North American gamers will love RPGs.
Hey, right here.
Yeah.
I was like, this is a Mario game. I have to play it, but but I don't know if I like it.
With Nintendo, they were just like, if we put Mario in anything, it's gonna sell. Yeah. So Nintendo was like, okay, let's put him in an RPG. And Shigeru Miyamoto always wanted to kind of see Mario in an RPG. And I think, I won't tease everything, but like one of my favorite stories from Super Mario RPG development was, Square pitched the idea and they had Mario with a sword riding a horse on their pitchboard. And they showed it to Miyamoto, and his reaction, he said, "That's not right."
Well, and he's right. Yeah. I mean, just thinking of the image just sounds wrong anyways.
I mean, to this day, I feel like the version of the Mushroom Kingdom expressed in Mario RPG is like my favorite version of it. Yeah. Like that's what I want to think of as like the canonical Mushroom Kingdom.
Yeah. It's such a great game. Even like when I was recording all my footage, I just had a blast playing it. Mm-hmm. The translation, which was really well done. I thought it was
Ted Woolsey did it, didn't he?
Ted Woolsey did it, and it's funny. It's just funny.
I remember thinking like, it was really kind of it was the first RPG that I personally got into, and I didn't play a lot of games that were really story driven or even event driven at the time. I was kind of confused when I first played it because I was so used to mostly playing like platformers and stuff. So when you go to Mario's pad, and I kind of read up on the story. I knew like the basis of the story was, sword falls from the sky, Mario, Bowser, and Princess go in 3 different directions.
And that was another crazy thing. Bowser joined your party.
Yeah.
Like that was nuts.
And it's kind of a shame that the manual spoils that and magazines spoiled that. Because I guess that was considered a selling point because that's like so out of left field. But but the princess joined the party was a total surprise for me when it happened. I had no idea.
Yeah, she falls out of the sky with her umbrella.
Yeah,
like, I'm going with you.
But the thing was, I knew that. Like, I'm like, okay. So when Toad says, "Go back to Bowser's castle and bring her back," at the beginning of the game, I'm thinking, she's not there. I know she's not there. And I spent way too long being confused because then you leave Mario's pad and you go back to the world map. Well, Bowser's castle is back to the left. And I'm used to playing games at the time where you're just going down the map. You're not like going back and forth. And
right.
Like I didn't understand at the time. I mean, I was 12. Or actually, I was still 11 probably. I didn't understand at the time that, okay, well, just do the thing that the character says. It will trigger an event that lets you progress. This was all foreign territory to me at the time. And, but, I really got into it. But even I say all that to say I was not used to playing games with a lot of words and writing in it. But I remember thinking the guy who wrote the English text for this game needs to write every game because he's hilarious.
Yeah.
And little did I know at that time, he kind of was, at least for Square.
He was the
the
guy at Square.
Right.
What the other thing I love about the game is they incorporated a lot of platforming in it. So they kind of try to keep it like a Mario game. Like you got to jump from blocks, and there's coin blocks, and there's like little mini games scattered throughout.
Mm-hmm. I feel like the perspective works a lot better for that sort of gameplay than the Mario and Luigi perspective.
Yes. Yeah.
Which I understand Alpha Dream is kind of largely made of a lot of the old Mario RPG creative team. But those games have always been my least favorite Mario RPGs. I kind of just, I hate to admit it, but I mean, I kind of stopped buying them after a while because I just wasn't really feeling them anymore.
Yeah. I think the last I played Paper Mario Sticker Star, and that I did not like that game.
I wanted to like it, but yeah, I didn't really like it either.
Well, there's like no incentive to battle.
Exactly. That is
game.
100% my complaint with it, because I like the idea, because it's like I like the idea of the stickers, because it's kind of like almost like in theory, a survival sort of mechanic. Like you gather the stickers that you can find, and you have this limited stock and you use it, but you always came out of battle with a worse situation than you went in. So why would you ever fight?
Right.
And the other problem with that game was that a lot of boss battles required a very specific sticker to even beat the boss. And there was absolutely no warning about what you needed to finish the fight before you fight the boss. And that was pretty ridiculous. I do still kind of want to play Color Splash. I mean, I'm hoping that they fixed a lot of the issues, but
I've heard it's a little better, but like honestly, I think the last Paper Mario that I thought was good was the one on GameCube, the Thousand Year Door.
Great game.
I thought that one was good.
I didn't like Super Paper Mario that much, because I felt like, I mean,
that was the one on Wii,
right?
Yeah, it was the one.
That one was a little.
A lot of people really like that one, but the thing is, because it's a great idea.
Really, I thought a lot of people didn't like it because they said it had too much story.
I don't know.
Really
I think it's somewhat popular, but my problem with that game was that it was neither, it kind of tries to blend platforming and RPG, but it isn't very good at being a platformer or an RPG. The platforming is really kind of superficial. It's, yes, it's jumping, side-scrolling perspective, but the platforming in itself, there's no real challenge to it. And then the RPG aspect, was definitely a bit watered down from previous Paper Mario games. And I guess the other thing that kind of got me about that were there were a lot of parts of the game where you were told to do a very tedious and not fun thing. And ultimately it was kind of a joke. Like, there's this part relatively early on where you have to like run this hamster wheel or treadmill or something. You just have to do it like for way longer than you actually think you would have to. And it's like, am I doing the right thing? Should I be looking somewhere else? No, you're just supposed to run on that for that long. And they're trying to make some sort of joke or point about, but it's like, okay, I know you were trying to make a joke, but the fact of the matter is that wasn't any fun to do.
Yeah.
But yeah, the GameCube one is phenomenal. That's my favorite Paper Mario for sure.
Yeah, same here. Although I haven't played any since then. So.
Well, don't play Sticker Star.
I have it, but I won't play it.
It's my warning to you. Yeah,
well, that's
cool. I sold my copy. I was just like, I don't even want to play this game anymore.
Isn't it such a relief though when you get to do an episode and actually like play through a game?
I know.
It's great.
Yeah, right.
Especially a game that you love.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not the like peak experience, because you do have to remind yourself, okay, I'm recording.
Right.
Yeah.
And I have to make sure I get footage of this, and I have to stop recording because I don't want the file to be too big.
Yep.
Stuff like that. But so like you have to keep that in mind. But yeah, I actually like enjoyed I was like, oh, goody, I get to record Mario RPG
I
footage
know.
today.
Oh man, I'm jealous because I've played through that whole game probably like 10 times, but I haven't played through it since like before college. So it's been a long
Pick it up
time.
again. You'll have a blast.
Yeah.
And you'll remember where all the frog coins are.
Oh yeah. Oh, I mean,
Yeah.
there's the one that you gotta get like in the beginning. You gotta stand on Toad's head, and that's your one shot at getting it the whole game.
Yep.
Man.
There's tons of secrets, and there's the secret. My favorite was the secret boss battle that Square put in. What's his name?
Culex, yeah.
Culex. He was like the most generic Final Fantasy secret boss.
Yeah.
He looked like every other.
But it has the
from
Final Fantasy 4.
Is the four elements. Yeah. So much fun.
The music like that.
Oh man.
And even the combat, like you have to time your attacks and you'll do more damage. Like it was just such an interactive RPG.
Yep.
A lot of fun.
I feel though like in some of like the Mario and Luigi games, like they brought that interactivity, like they made it more interactive, but at the same time, like I don't know how to describe my complaint with this, but it's like at some point all that they tried to shoehorn into it became too much. Like every move had like its own like completely special way to control and stuff. And
whereas in Mario RPG, you literally would press a button.
Right. And in some ways it almost felt like it watered down the RPG aspect, I guess, because it's like you really aren't playing an RPG anymore. You're just playing some action game where you're choosing from these different moves. Whereas in Mario RPG, it is still an RPG. It's just got this added element of timing.
Yeah.
Whereas the other games, they became all about the timing, and I don't know. To me, that wasn't as special.
Yeah. I agree with that.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's what I'm working on.
I'm excited about it.
Yeah, it's definitely exciting especially when you get to do a game focused episode. You know.
Yep. It's also like I always think about like I'd love to do the history of The Legend of Zelda, but do you know how long that episode would take?
Yeah.
So it's nice when I can find a game from that series, like Mario RPG from the Super Mario series, where I can make it its own episode and it works. Like if I just did an episode on Super Mario Brothers 3,
Yeah,
there's not enough there. Like you can with Mario 2 because of the localization of that game is everyone knows that story.
And that's it's
Mario
like
3. It's just
what
even
is there left to say?
Here's the next Mario game.
Yeah,
and it was
if you could really like go through the whole series and stuff, but it's just like Mario 3, even though it's my personal favorite, I mean, it's just another step along the way.
Yeah.
Whereas Mario RPG, that can stand out as its own thing. And sure, you can maybe talk about, the Square Fallout and that, then Nintendo had intelligent systems follow up on it. And, but, you don't have to get into the nitty gritty of everything else. Mario RPG is,
it's its own thing.
Yeah, very much its own thing for sure.
So like with Zelda, I could do an episode on the Philips CDI games because those are definitely their own thing.
Yes.
Right.
Although I did see a tweet the other day
about the skeleton, right?
Where the skeleton in the desert, it matches from the world map of, was it the Wanda Gamelon?
Really?
Yeah.
You're talking Breath of the Wild.
Breath of the Wild, yes.
Really?
It's like they put that.
It's got to be like a nod to it.
It has to be.
That's funny.
You got to see it. You have to see it. It's on. It's all over Twitter.
I have not seen it. I've been working on the new episode, so I haven't spent a lot of time on the internet.
I guess we should probably let people know that what is going on with that really quick. Because I'm afraid like this weekend is going to be 3 weeks since our last episode, and we've never gone so long. I will see what I can do. It's probably doubtful of me doing like a little thing on the SNES mod that I just got done. But
the episode I'm working on is on RGB and component switchers, and It's kind of just, in terms of editing, it's kind of only just barely begun.
Yeah.
So getting something out by Friday for me is definitely a pipe dream. Which, you know, I'd been hoping that I would not be I'd be done editing this episode before Persona 5, but that is nowhere close to happening.
Yeah.
So yeah, so
And I'm still working on the secret thing that has not been announced yet.
yeah,
And
which
I know about it. Secret. I'm not gonna say. It's very cool.
Yeah, we're excited about it. It's gonna be a big episode for us. But yeah, so that we just can't really predict when my next episode is gonna be done, when Corey's next episode is gonna be done. So it might be a little long between episodes, but I think we're still going to be able to release 2 episodes in April.
Oh yeah. I think that's, you know, like the episode you're working on now, and then the one that I'm doing. Hopefully, the one that I'm doing might even happen really soon after yours.
Yeah, I mean it could.
Yeah.
Oh, and you guys do these live streams every Sunday, so
Right.
it's not like you're like abandoning people.
Yeah.
Right.
You know.
It's true, but
now,
I mean,
me on the other hand, get that impression.
But I mean, you were streaming for a while too, or do you not?
Yeah.
I mean, you were streaming on Twitch.
Twitch, yeah. I'd like to get back into it, but just this Blu-ray is basically killing me. So
yeah.
I have to finish the Blu-ray, or nothing else will happen.
It's a nice thing to be able to focus on, though, I guess.
Yeah, it's a good learning experience.
Yeah.
It's actually once you kind of learn the basics of like putting a DVD or Blu-ray together, it's actually pretty easy, and you just kind of got to go through the motions. But like, it can be intimidating, definitely.
Yeah.
Trying to learn something like that.
I mean, how many episodes are you putting on it?
It's basically every episode from the year 2015. So when I started time. So, I mean, you have the Satori Wada episode, you have the Power Glove episode, you have the Tengen episode, and every episode from 2015, minus the book reviews, because I just don't think book reviews are something you're going to put in a Blu-ray for and hit play, you know?
So that's cool. So you're not going like way back to the beginning and doing like some of the really early stuff.
No. I'm doing what I can, convert to Blu-ray.
Right.
And... stuff that I think is worthy of being put on the Blu-ray. Plus, it'll have the exclusive episodes. So I think there's like 17 episodes total, plus some extra stuff.
I mean, that's a lot of episodes.
It's a hefty Blu-ray.
Yeah. Are you doing like commentaries or anything?
There's audio commentary on every episode. Have some special guests on there. Pro Jared is on there. Gerard the Completionist is on there. Clint Lazy Game Reviews.
Nice.
Yeah, it's there's a ton of stuff on there. I think people will be happy, and I'm hoping to price it around $20, so which I think for a Blu-ray is pretty good. But we'll see.
Yeah. Is that gonna do it?
All right.
Well, thanks, Norm, for joining us. It's been awesome.
Problem.
You are welcome back to join us anytime.
Absolutely. It was cool seeing good old Bleemcast.
Yeah. I always feel like it's, when we do live streams, when we just release an episode, we try to do a stream that's like based on that. And it's kind of a nice way to kind of put the subject to bed, I think. Just kind of talk about things that like we removed from the episode or we couldn't put in, and just like extra little things that, it's just kind of like a nice capper for it.
We used to call the stream episode debrief.
Yeah, that was the
what it is. Yeah,
putting Bleem to bed.
Yep. Yeah, exactly.
Bleem to bed.
Yeah, and you're like, now you can be like, I don't really have to think about this anymore. Even though you probably felt like that anyways, but it's kind of a cool way to like tie into.
Once I hit upload, I'm like done.
Yes.
I move on to the next topic, because like when you do research on something, it's like you kind of like get tired of it.
Yeah,
you do. Like I had learned quite enough about Bleem by the time I was done because it was just a lot of research. I mean, especially with those court case episodes, you're just reading tons and tons of stuff.
Yeah. And then, like condensing all that information down into something that's, digestible. It's pretty.
Yeah.
It's a skill for sure. But
yeah.
All right. Well, we will see everybody next week. Good night.
Good night, everyone.
Guys.